Hi. Okay, that was weird. Hi, I'm Abby. I'm an energy coach and a creator, and I make content that will help people align their creative energy with their goals. And today I'm going to share some tips to help you enhance your productivity and streamline your process in ways that feel good. So a little bit about me and some of the things I create. I like to make independent short films. I do creative writing and photography. And so I'm going to take some of what I've learned from those experiences and tell you about different ways that you can reach your creative goals faster. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some about my creative process and how I get into the state of creative flow. And I'm also going to share some insight on the difference between masculine and feminine energy and how this relates to my creative process and how it can help your creative process once you understand these concepts. So first of all, what is masculine and feminine energy? So first things first, do not get it confused with masculinity or femininity. These are two totally different things. The way you present, if you present more masculine or feminine, this has to do with masculinity or femininity, not masculine and feminine energy. That's a totally different concept. So we're going to be talking about masculine and feminine energy. And men and women all have a different mix of masculine and feminine energy. Your masculine energy is when you're working, and it favors structures and routines. The 9-to-5 work schedule and corporate work life is actually structured around masculine energy because it's all about routines, working the same schedule every day, structuring your workflow, structuring processes. It's very rigid routines and repeated cycles. And you show up to work and you present very similar every day. So it's showing up the same way. When you're focused on discipline and numbers and hitting your goals, getting everything right, that is masculine energy. And then feminine energy is different. It's cyclical. It does not show up the same every day. It flows. And there a lot of creative jobs embrace this workflow. So like in the film industry, people will work on a certain project for a few days or a few weeks or a few months, and then they'll finish with that project, they'll take some time off from work, and then they'll start on something totally different. So a lot of artists and creatives, they embrace this feminine energy more, and they're more in a state of flow. So you're also in feminine energy when you're relaxing, you're being creative, you're present in the moment, you're spending time with friends, or expressing identity through ways like shopping or dressing up in fun outfits. So oftentimes the feminine self is better at enjoying life, and it can create in ways that the masculine self can't, because the masculine self can't rationalize certain objectives or certain creations. Whereas the masculine self can create certain logistical creations that the feminine self can't think through the logic of. So to be a great creator, it's important to understand the principles of masculine and feminine energy and know how to structure your days that favors the shift between these kinds of energies in a way that will help you create. So I'll talk a little bit about how I know when I'm in more of a feminine energy state. It's basically times when I'm relaxing or I'm very present in the moment and I'm kind of just sitting by, enjoying my surroundings. If I'm outside, I might notice the trees swaying in the wind or the birds chirping. I'm very present with the moment and in tune with my surroundings. Or maybe I'm caught up into a conversation with a good friend and I'm just enjoying the conversation, not really thinking too hard. That analytical part of my brain isn't really turned on. Or it could be when I'm creating and my mind is so caught up in painting or drawing or trying on clothes or making a video that's so fun and interactive that my mind is kind of just shut off, or at least my analytical mind, and I don't have to think through how to do things. I'm just flowing and creating. And then on the contrary, when I'm in masculine energy, that's when my analytical mind is analyzing, trying to figure out how to solve a problem, how to do something, learning a new concept, using my left brain, I think is what they call it. And keep in mind, this energy, masculine energy, is not bad. It's very necessary, and it provides your life and your goals with the structure they need to actually come to life. It's very important to have discipline and routines that can provide the structure and the commitment and hit the numbers that you need to hit and put in the work that is necessary to reach your goals. So I think the perfect creative process or productive process is having the right amount of both kinds of energy, the amount that works for you. Some people prefer to be in more masculine energy a lot, and they like working through very analytical tasks, whereas other people just kind of like to go with the flow, and feminine energy feels more natural to them. But they kind of need to work on having that structure, bringing in that structured side a little bit more into their daily routines. And then on the contrary, someone who has a lot of structure, that's natural for them, they might struggle coming up with really new creative ideas, or they might struggle kind of getting into this more relaxed state where you can do something out of the ordinary, or switching up your old routines, kind of getting into that wild feminine energy. And so they can really benefit from kind of exploring that side more. Okay, so why does this matter? Why does it matter if you have more feminine or masculine energy? So I think the issue is when you kind of get stuck to one side or the other. So there's two sides of this. One, you could be stuck in more masculine energy, which oftentimes happens when you're stuck in survival mode, and we'll get into that in a second. Or you can be stuck in feminine energy, and that's where you can't really, you struggle with discipline, you struggle to show up the same way every day, you struggle to commit with what you said you were going to do. So let's go back to number one. If you kind of struggle with being stuck in masculine energy. So if you're stuck in masculine energy, it's likely that you feel stuck in survival mode. And this is what happens when your nervous system has perceived some sort of threat in your environment. And this can be trauma related. It can be something that you experienced long ago and your body has never really healed. And you feel like you're always on the clock, or you're always having to look out for yourself. You might feel overwhelmed and stressed by the amount of responsibilities just to make ends meet and pay your rent, that sort of thing. But whatever it is, for some reason, your nervous system struggles to relax. And because of this, your masculine self has stepped in to kind of overcompensate and take care of your feminine self. And so your masculine self is kind of doing too much work now, and it's not letting your more fun and creative side come out to play. It's kind of locked them away, and it's associated that side of you with being unsafe, or like that side of you could cause chaos. So whenever you try to do a task like relax or paint a picture or go for a walk outside when you don't really need to, not to get exercise, just for fun, your masculine self might kind of step in, and you might start feeling guilty that you're wasting time or you're procrastinating. You can't really let loose and enjoy a relaxing task or something that you only perceive as fun. And this is because your masculine self is working overtime and always on the lookout to keep you productive. And then on the flip side, if you're more stuck in feminine energy, you struggle to have discipline. Maybe you try to get yourself motivated behind a task, but you keep procrastinating, or you try to sit down and get through an entire task and you find yourself always getting distracted, checking social media, that sort of thing. I haven't experienced this side as much in recent years as I have being stuck in masculine energy. I mean, I can think back to my high school days and kind of think when I struggled with routines, struggled to get up on time and make it to school, struggled with commitment, that sort of thing. So I definitely have experienced being stuck a little too much in the feminine also, where I only wanted to do things that felt fun to me, and it was hard for me to do anything like math class or math homework. So it's very possible for you to be stuck in the opposite situation as well. It's harder for you to bring that masculine self out and really take initiative, work on discipline, etc. So I think if you're stuck in the masculine, the best thing that you can do is just force yourself to do more tasks just for the fun of it. And a good kind of trick for this is you can convince your masculine side that working on fun things is productive. So that is like an approach I took when I didn't want to sit down and make a really creative YouTube video, because I felt like, oh, it'd be a waste of time. Like a lot goes into these like cinematic looking videos. What if, it doesn't get a lot of views, and I use all that time working on this task and then it never amounts to anything? That was me being stuck in the logic, being stuck in my head. My masculine self was trying to talk me out of it. And so then I thought, okay, well, let's think about how is this productive for me? Well, I'm a filmmaker, so working on videos like this is helping me practice, lighting, setting up shots, setting up the camera, practice filmmaking. So I started talking my masculine self into ways that this is actually productive for me. And then I realized when I tried to do it, it felt easier. So that's a good trick, is convince your masculine self that like relaxing, stuff like that is productive. Another thing I thought of was like going outside for walks. It might not directly achieve anything that you're trying to work on, but it does help you relax, and it helps put your mind in more of a relaxed state. And sometimes that's when the best creative ideas come to you. When you're out in nature and you're hearing the birds chirp, there's something magical about nature and what it does to your mind. Those rhythms of natural sounds, like leaves swaying in the wind, birds chirping, crickets, that frequency is actually very good for your brain, and it puts you in this relaxed state where creative ideas can flow more freely, and it's actually more likely for good ideas to come to you. So I constantly remind my more masculine self that, and I remind myself that those walks through nature and leisurely activities are actually productive in the long run, because it's helping me relax, it's helping put my mind in a different state, and good ideas will probably come to me in those scenarios. Okay, and then on the other hand, when you're stuck in feminine energy, you're struggling to bring that masculine side out, you're struggling with discipline, with routine, I think the best thing you can do is just start doing discipline building exercises. So the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, I would highly recommend this one. It goes over so many ways to get more disciplined. One thing it tells you to do in the book is to build a habit tracker. And this is where you can track things like your diet, if that's something you're interested in, going to the gym, how much work you do throughout the day, whatever it is that will help your process the most. And so this is something I've tried. I actually have an Excel file where I track the times I go to the gym that week. So I make sure I hit all 3 of my gym days. I track how many like vegetables and non-processed meals I'm eating. I track how much work I do, just all sorts of different things, whether I take my vitamins, etc. And so this habit tracker has really helped me keep myself in check when it comes to discipline, because if I'm about to slip up, like have a sweet treat for the 3rd time that week, I think in my head, like, oh, I'm really going to feel guilty about myself when I'm filling out my Excel sheet for the day and I have to mark yes on sweet treat for the 3rd time in a row. So it really does help. Like, I didn't think having an Excel file would help that much, but it really does just make me question what I'm doing, and it keeps me in check for meeting my weekly goals. And also I've noticed when I get into weird little ruts where I'm kind of slipping up with discipline and I skip the gym, or I start eating unhealthy, or I go out with friends too much and have too much wine that week, and I start just feeling weird about myself. Sometimes at first I'll be like, no, like, it's okay. It's summer. Like, it's okay that I'm having more sweet treats than usual. Like, it's the holidays, etc. Like, I kind of start making excuses, and the second that I'm able to like force myself to get back in the gym, back on that routine, I start feeling so much better. And I'm like, oh, that's what that gross feeling was. So I think sometimes just pushing yourself and not letting yourself come up with excuses to talk you out of why you shouldn't have to stay so rigid on that routine, because it really does help. And in my experience, having that discipline is only going to make you feel better, and it's only going to make your processes a lot faster and a lot smoother. And I think of my best ideas when I'm the most disciplined too. Like, in terms of creative ideas, some of my best ideas come to me when I'm running on the treadmill. I don't know why, but that's where a lot of my best ideas hit. And when I've taken care of myself, taken care of my body, done my responsibilities, that's when my mind is in the best state for creativity. So next we'll get into the state of creative flow. So we talked about masculine versus feminine energy. So now I'm going to talk about creative flow versus like work mode. So work mode is when I'm, knocking out all of those mundane, boring, masculine tasks. And then creative mode, I feel like it's sort of a mix of creative or feminine and masculine energy. Like, it's a state where I'm able to create something, and I'm able to easily shift between my left and my right brain. I can jump from a more logistical, like, how do I record this? How do I do this? How do I figure this out? To, okay, how can I make this more creative? Like, how can I make this more artsy? Like, getting into that imaginative place. You need to be able to both understand and listen what feels good in your body and what you want to create in the moment, and also be able to work out in a reasonable time the logistics of how you can achieve that goal or that art piece. So when I refer to creative flow, I'm kind of thinking of these states where you're so tuned into a project that your mind almost checks out in a way. Like you're still able to analytically think. Maybe you're so absorbed in editing a video that you really love, or you're so absorbed in putting together this art piece for your art class. And there's still analytical components going on, like you're thinking, how can I mix the colors right? Or how can I sculpt this to look like how I want it to? But you're in this flow state. You're so present in what you're doing. That is the creative flow. So obviously this is not a state that you can just snap in and out of. Like it's kind of hard to get into that flow state, especially when you're starting a new project or trying something that you've never done before, or doing the same rigid thing over and over again. Eventually it stops feeling like creative flow and it feels more like work. So here's a couple of tips for getting into creative flow. So one is get past the initial hesitation. Anytime I start a new project, there's always that initial resistancy that if I don't get over it soon, I go into immediate danger zone where I could procrastinate and waste more and more time. I heard somewhere that it only takes 10 to 15 minutes to get over that initial resistance. So if you sit down to work on a task, maybe it's editing a video, you open up your editing software and you're like, I really don't want to do this, or I'm not sure how I want the video to look. And you kind of try to procrastinate or go to YouTube and fish around for different ideas on how to make the video look. You're kind of procrastinating, you're putting it off. You're not just getting right in and hitting the nail on the head. So my advice is force yourself to get over that 10 to 15 minutes of initial resistance. And remember that. Remember when you sit down to start a new task and you feel yourself procrastinating, remember that it's only going to take 10 to 15 minutes for you to get over that initial blocked feeling. Also figure out what it is that you really want to create. So if you've been struggling for a while to get into a good creative flow, you're not really feeling inspired. And when you work on these projects that you've had in mind, they're starting to feel like grunt work, like just clocking in the hours, doing the task, and it's starting to feel like a lot of work. You might be holding on to ideas that you think you want to do or you think they're going to be successful, but it's not actually what you're passionate about. It's not what you really want to be doing. And you might not even realize that. So when this happens, you're normally in your head. You're too far in your logic. You're thinking, oh, this idea is good because it's trending right now and it might blow up on the internet and it's really popular. It might make me a lot of money, etc. But it's not what you actually want to be doing. It can take a while to realize this. But once you realize this and you finally shift gears and you get into that more creative state and you're able to come up with totally new ideas that feel more fun and more fresh and energizing, that is a sign that you should pivot over and try those newer and funner ideas for a while. And then you can always come back to the burnout task later on. But that hit me. I was stuck in that state for a while. I was stuck in thinking that I needed to make a certain kind of video, like these more influency style videos, or like vlogs was really in style there for a while. And I was kind of stuck in the mindset where I had to create that style video because that's what was popular. But anytime I would go and try to create the video, I just felt blocked or stuck, or like I wasn't really connected to what I was doing. And then it hit me like I should make that same content but put it in more of like a cinematic, like film style video. And boom, I was able to get into creative flow. I was able to work on those videos. It didn't feel like work. It felt more like fun and it felt good. It felt productive. So sometimes you just haven't had that right idea yet of projects that are more aligned to you. So if you feel like you haven't had that idea yet and you don't know how to bring out those creative ideas, like maybe you're in a state where you don't even know what you want to do and you can't really think what would feel fun. I think a good thing you can try is shocking your nervous system. And so doing something out of the ordinary that takes you out of your normal routine, or maybe going for a run and running so fast that it kind of like shocks your nervous system. Like if you've ever gone on a run and out of nowhere decided to just sprint as fast as you can, it feels so freeing. Like you're releasing energy and afterwards you feel so great. That can really break up your energy and just help help ideas flow in your head. Or there might be a missing puzzle piece that you don't have, or a way to make your process easier or faster. So it's possible that your mind is kind of blocking you from doing certain work because your mind perceives it as a really difficult task. And so in that case, maybe the task is too strenuous or too draining for you to really achieve over and over again, and you need to find a way to make this process easier. So for me, for example, I don't really like talking to the camera without a script. Like I have a script that I glance at occasionally and it helps me a lot. But I used to just try to freeball and kind of talk freely and remember all of my ideas, and I couldn't really keep a structured flow to the video. I would repeat myself a lot, etc. And once I figured out, hey, I can have a script over here, I can kind of reference my bullet points, I'll have a plan for the video before trying to record it. Turns out that helped me a lot, and it kind of alleviated a lot of the stress of getting things wrong, having to do things over. The process needed to be easier, so my mind didn't perceive it as such a hard task. And then once my mind started perceiving it as like, hey, getting the camera out for a little bit today, it's not going to be that hard, it'll be easy. It just became easier to do the overall task. Okay, so there's another key point of how to get into this creative flow. So I've noticed there's a sweet spot of doing tasks that my masculine self views as productive and my feminine self views as fun. So if I try to make myself sit down and do these grunt work tasks, or my days get too repetitive and I'm kind of doing the same thing over and over again, I can burn out. And so when that happens, it's because my feminine side does not view what I'm doing as fun or creative. And then on the flip side, I can't spend too much time doing activities that are solely fun and not productive, like playing video games or maybe just doodling, hanging out with friends, tanning by the pool, etc. Or else I'll start feeling guilty and I'll feel like I've been wasting a lot of time. My masculine self will step in and not like it. So if I can find this sweet spot of tasks that my creative self thinks is fun and my masculine self thinks is productive, it's a lot easier for me to stay productive for longer amounts of time. And this doesn't just have to be work. Obviously, you can make, like I mentioned earlier, you can make the work that you're doing more fun by doing something more creative or more related to your passions. But you can also apply this task or apply this principle to any task, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's eating healthy, doing chores, etc. There's ways to make those tasks more fun and kind of bring your feminine side, your more creative side into them. So for example, like I was feeling really burned out from the gym at one point, and I would still go, but it felt like torture almost. Like it was torture to get through my same routine workout 3 days or 3 times a week. And so I was like, okay, what if I change it up and I start going to this weightlifting class, or I try these weightlifting videos and I kind of change up the order that I do things, or maybe I go for a run outside. Changing it up is always a good way to bring in your creative and feminine self, and that novelty can really help your brain feel excited and stay engaged in what you're doing. And my last tip for staying productive is make sure that you do have that time where you're totally clocked out and you get to relax and hang out with your friends, or just do something that totally takes your mind out of work, because you can burn out if you're not giving yourself enough time to relax and do what really recharges you. And you need to make sure it is something that actually recharges you, because if you're doing something in your free time that doesn't, then you won't be getting that relaxation that you need. And so it can be helpful to have rules for this. Like maybe you say, okay, after 7 or 8 p.m. each night, I need to stop and clock out and relax for the evening. Or maybe you want to have Saturdays off every week, like Saturday's that day that you get to look forward to. I would say if you've gone for a while without taking a break, maybe start planning them out, or plan out what you're going to do. Like plan a really fun day for yourself. And so instead of saying like, oh, on Saturday I'll do something relaxing, maybe plan it out and find like a new park or new activity you could try. Okay, so to close out for today, I'm going to give you some journal prompts that can help you think through these concepts and identify how they relate to you. So journal prompt number 1 is, what does my masculine self want versus what does my feminine self want? So really think through times when you're in that masculine state of getting tasks done, being productive, conquering the day. What does that version of you want? And then think through, what does your feminine self want? So times when you're creatively thinking, you're trying on clothes, you're shopping, you're with your friends, what does that person want? And then journal prompt number 2, what does my masculine self wear versus what does my feminine self wear? Now this might seem kind of silly, but it's actually a big difference, and it affects the way you show up, and other people will actually notice it. So for example, one time I showed up to work on a film with some of my friends, and I was meeting someone on set for the first time. And I had on like a masculine outfit. I was in work mode. I was kind of stressed that day. I was very like hustle bustle. And then I saw this person again the next week at like a hangout. And I was like in my flow state, more in my feminine state, wearing a feminine outfit. And they were like, whoa, I didn't even recognize you. You're very different from when I met you the other day. And I realized like not only was my energy different, like what I chose to wear that day was different. What state you're in can really affect the way you present to other people. So kind of think through, when you're having a productive day, what do you feel like wearing? It might be athletic clothes or business clothes. And then when you're in more of a relaxed, like fun day off with your friends, you probably wear something more creative or more expressive of your identity. And then the last journal prompt is, what task or project have you worked on in the past where you got absorbed in the creative flow state? And so in other words, what project have you worked on where you've gotten so invested that you've lost track of time and you got totally absorbed in the creative process? So that is all I have for this video. I hope you enjoy doing those journal exercises, and I will see you next time.